Chapter 4. Mia practically dragged me out of the building and called up Roland, the guy who had been picking me up every morning, to take us to some high-end tailors. In mid-Manhattan, we jumped out at the first tailor we saw and I gave Roland a grateful pat on the shoulder for being at our beck and call. "All right, I'll order some normal clothes to your apartment for you," Mia said, as we walked into the store. "Today's gonna be about finding you a few good suits." "What, you don't like my polo shirts?" I joked. "The polo shirts are fine, but I've got a feeling you want to look a bit more CEO?" the blonde asked with a knowing smirk. I mean, the thought crossed my mind. I smirked back. "Well, let's find something for you to wear then, Mr. CEO, my assistant cooed, and headed straight for a rack of very expensive blue-colored suits. "Blue, huh?" I let out a weak chuckle. My dad always wore blue. "Oh shit." Mia immediately stopped rifling through the hangers and turned to me with wide green eyes. "Josh, I'm so sorry." "Hey, don't be." I cut her off with a warm smile. "It's fine." No, let's look for another color," she suggested. "How about black?" "Black's a classic." "Yeah, black's a classic," I agreed. "Let's see what they've got." Mia looked incredibly cute as she looked through each design and style with a serious pout on her face. I stood back and let her do all the hard work, especially considering I'd actually never had to go suit shopping before. After college, I'd gone straight into managing restaurants and they weren't the kind of establishments that called for a suit and tie. "How about this one?" she asked and pulled out a suave-looking single-breasted black suit. "That looks good." I nodded in agreement. "Okay, go try it on, and also." Mia quickly scanned the tables full of shirts and grabbed a black long sleeve that she added to the pile. Then she moved on to pants and went through a couple of different sizes of smart black suit pants until she found the size she was looking for and dumped them on top of the pile in my arms. "These should fit," she said to herself. "Okay, go and get dressed while I look for some shoes for you." "Are you eyeballing all of this?" I asked with a chuckle of surprise. "I'm very good at eyeballing things, I'll have you know," she said proudly. "Now go. There's no time to waste." "As you wish, my liege," I said with a dramatic bow and made my way to the changing rooms at the back of the store. I knew this place was expensive just from the decor. Dark wood paneling lined the changing room walls, and there were antique-looking paintings hung up everywhere. Felt like I'd gone into a time warp back to the 1800s or something. I felt more than a little out of place, but I had to remind myself that this was my world now. Speaking of, it was time for me to rip off the Band-Aid and see just how much money was at my disposal. I definitely didn't think I was going to run into any insufficient funds issues today, but before my parents died, I'd built up a habit of checking my account before any big purchases because nothing was more embarrassing than having a card decline. So I took a deep breath, pulled up my bank account and almost stopped breathing. I had just over $10 million. The number of zeros looked unreal, but they stayed the same even when I refreshed the app. $10 million. And that was just my personal account. That didn't even touch all the other assets my parents left me, like their penthouse, their company shares, or the company black Amex card that had an unlimited credit limit. Even if I bought out this entire store, I would still be insanely rich, and a faint smile tugged at my lips. I could get used to this. For now, I put away my phone and managed to squirm my way out of my old clothes that were definitely cutting my circulation off, and then I slipped on the clothes Mia had picked out for me. Surprisingly, they fit almost perfectly. The shirt gave me a little bit of room but was also tight enough to show off my muscles underneath, and the suit jacket slipped on just right. The pants fit great too, but I definitely need a belt to finish off the outfit, especially considering the bottoms of the fabric were a little too long. I took a look at myself in the full-length mirror and smiled at my reflection. I looked good. Pretty damn good, actually. I hardly even recognized myself. Not just because of my altered physique, but also because I'd never really dressed this smart before. It was weird. Looked so much like my dad when he was younger. I ignored my white socks sticking out the bottom of my pants, and just as I went to open the dark plum curtains separating me from the rest of the shop, Mia's hand stuck itself inside, holding a pair of black Oxfords. "How's it looking in there?" she called out. "It's looking good." I chuckled as I took the shoes and slipped them on my feet with ease. "I don't know how, but you've guessed all my sizes right." "I told you I'm good at eyeballing," Mia said like it was obvious. "Oh, here. I got you a belt as well." Her hand stuck back in between the curtain and the wall, and I grabbed the black leather belt sheet sourced. Then I slipped it on through the belt loops of my pants and tightened it. I looked even better than before now that I had the completed look, and I pulled back the curtains with a confident smile on my face. Mia jumped a little at my sudden appearance before she did a double take at my outfit. Her eyes looked me up and down, and a smirk slowly found its way onto her face. "You clean up nicely, Mr. St. James," she complimented. "It's all thanks to you," I said as I adjusted my open collar. "So are we done here?" "Hang on, Buster, we're not finished yet." Mia smirked before grabbing my hand and leading me back to the main section of the shop. "You, sir, are not only missing a tie but also cufflinks." "I feel like this looks good as it is," I reasoned. "Like I'm some kind of dark, mysterious bachelor ready to sweep you off your feet." "Well, you can sweep me off my feet with a tie on, handsome," the blonde said. And she reached for a black tie hanging up on one of the hooks. She eyed up the one in her hand and then another darker shade on another hook, before swapping them around. "This one is best," she said as she wrapped it around my neck and tucked it under my collar. I watched her as she methodically started tying the black fabric. Her brow furrowed, and she got a cute little scrunch at the top of her nose as she concentrated. It didn't take her long to finish it, and she smoothed it down with a pleased smile on her face. "Better?" I asked. "Almost," she said before turning to the sales assistant standing at the cash register. "Excuse me, sir. We'd like a pair of your best silver cufflinks, please." "Silver? Aren't we?" I quickly lowered my voice and cleared my throat as the clerk was starting to make his way over. "Aren't we allergic to silver?" "That is a myth, Josh," Mia laughed. "Silver can't hurt us, and we don't turn on the full moon. It just makes us a lot more powerful." "Good to know," I hummed in surprise. "Our most expensive cufflinks, sir," the assistant said as he opened a small velvet box revealing gleaming silver cufflinks that looked encrusted with black diamonds. "Thanks," I said as I took them out of the box and started looping them through the holes at the end of my sleeve. "And we'll take all this." "Fantastic, sir." The assistant bowed his head. "I take it all of the clothes fit you to your liking?" "Pretty much," I said. "The pants are a little long." "Josh, why didn't you say?" Mia whispered to me. "It's really not a big deal." "Forgive my intrusion, sir," the assistant said. "But we offer a personal tailoring service, free of charge. I'd be happy to take your measurements and tailor the pants to your size." "I mean, I kinda need these clothes right now," I said and flicked my eyes between Mia and the assistant. "Take the measurements and I'll order more online," Mia said to the assistant. "Be prepared for a very big order." "Of course, ma'am," the clerk said with a chuckle. "Now let's see about those measurements." The assistant pulled out a tape measure from his front pocket and knelt down beside me on the ground. Then he measured my waist from my upper hip bone, before he moved the tape down to my crotch and all the way down my leg. I'd never been measured for a suit before, so I froze at his movements and Mia stifled a laugh behind her hand. "The pants are just a few inches off," the clerk mumbled to himself. "If you're happy to take these as they are, I can ring the suit up for you now." "The suit's your assistant," Mia quickly answered. "Just his assistant." "The suits your assistant orders shall be the more accurate measurements," he said. "Sounds good to me. Here, take my card." "I don't care about the price." I fished my wallet from my pocket before handing him my credit card. "I'll get some more suits in different colors sent to your apartment then?" Mia suggested. "At least that way you'll have more to pick from." "Sounds good to me," I agreed. "Thanks, Mia." "Don't mention it." She smiled. I got lost in her green eyes for a moment, and I completely forgot we were standing in the middle of a suit store. It was only when the assistant returned with my credit card that we snapped out of our little trance. "It's all gone through," he confirmed as he handed me my card. "Is there anything else I can get for you today, sir?" "I don't think so." I shook my head. "That's all for now," Mia added. "Well, in that case, have a good rest of your day," the assistant said politely. "We'll have your order processed and delivered as soon as it comes through." The clerk walked off and Mia started to make her way to the front doors. "Wait," I said as an idea came to me, and I adjusted my cufflinks as the blonde turned back to me. "I want to get you something to say thank you." "Oh, you really don't need to do that." "I want to," I cut her off. "You deserve it. Without you I'd be wandering around Lunar Corporation like a headless chicken. Josh, I'm just doing my job, Mia chuckled. I don't expect to be rewarded for that. I get paid enough as it is. Well, I don't care because I'm still getting you something, I said with a grin and took her hand. Now come on. Josh, Mia whined playfully but let me pull her outside of the shop. Regardless. Wait, what about your clothes in the changing room? Forget them. I scoffed. They don't fit anyway, and I've just been dressed by my wonderful assistant who I am about to treat. Mia rolled her eyes but let me pull her back toward Roland, who was waiting for us in his car. I quickly told the driver we were gonna keep shopping and that we'd give him a call when we were done. Then Mia let me pull her down the street to our next location. We walked hand in hand until I spotted a jewelry store a little way down the road. Before I'd shifted, there would have been no way I'd have been able to see it from so far away, but now I felt like I was looking through the world's best binoculars. It only took us a few minutes to walk down there, and I savored every single moment my hand was in hers. It felt good walking down that street, dressed in fine clothes with the bombshell of a woman at my side. There was still a part of me that wondered if this was all real. 2 days ago, if someone told me this was where I'd be, I would have called them crazy. But it was happening. This was my reality now, and I had no issues with that whatsoever. This place is really expensive, Josh, Mia said as we approached the glass door that gave us a view of the white marble interior with an array of dazzling jewels and pieces of shining metals. And I asked, do you think that's gonna stop me? No, but then let's go inside. I smirked and pulled open the glass door for her. Mia sighed and puffed out her bottom lip, but she walked in without much more fuss. I chuckled to myself at how cute she looked, and I had a triumphant look on my face as I entered the store. Hi there, welcome. A perky store assistant greeted us with a wide grin. Do you need help finding anything today? No, thank you, we're just looking, Mia said. Well, if you need anything, I'm right here, the shop girl said. Thanks, I said with a nod, and I boldly took Mia's hand again as we started to look around the store. There were glass cabinets of gorgeous jewelry all around the room, and the walls had a multitude of shelves holding bigger pieces like tiaras and necklaces. I tugged on Mia's hand and brought her over to a particular glass cabinet so we could really get a look at what was inside. The blonde put her delicate hand on her chin as she looked down at the various dazzling jewels. Rubies, emeralds, sapphires, diamonds, they all glimmered in the bright light coming from the crystal chandeliers over our heads. Do you see any you like? I whispered. My chest was partially pressed against her back, so her heat radiated onto my body and I could feel my blood run hotter at the contact. These are all really nice, Josh, she whispered back so the saleswoman wouldn't overhear. But if you're about to say it's too expensive, I will buy out this whole store. Just to prove a point, I mumbled into her ear. You're not gonna give this up, are you? Mia sighed dramatically and looked up at me through her lashes. Nope, I said and popped the P for emphasis. I tell you what, if you're so against the idea, how about you go wait outside and I'll pick something for you? Still means you're gonna buy me something, Mia protested. Yeah, but at least you can kind of feign innocence since you're technically not involved in the purchase. I reasoned and flashed her a smirk. See? I can act like a CEO already. You're cute, Mia deadpanned as she eyed me up and down, but I could see I'd already won by the smile she was fighting. Okay, fine. Seeing as you're not gonna relent, I'll go wait outside. Ha! Victory! I cheered with a pump of my fist. Shut up, the blonde said as she bumped her shoulder against mine. Just don't be long. I don't want you wasting your time on me. I won't be long, I said and put my hand over my heart. Pinky promise. You better not be, Mia jokingly warned as she headed for the door. I smiled as she reluctantly left, and I waited until I could see her back was turned to the window before I quickly started scanning the jewelry on display. I wanted to get her something that was perfect. I knew it was cheesy, but I really wanted to get this just right. Do you want some help picking something out for your girlfriend? The kind shop assistant asked as she approached me. Oh, she's not my girlfriend. I chuckled awkwardly. We're work colleagues, but I could use some help. Is there anything in particular you're thinking of? She asked as she joined me beside the glass cabinet. A ring? Necklace? A pair of earrings maybe. I thought for a moment about what would look best on the blonde. I wanted it to be something she could wear on any occasion, something that was noticeable. I'd hardly be able to see a ring unless I was staring at her hands, and earrings could be lost behind her hair if she wore it down. A necklace, I said after a moment or two of debating. I want to get her a necklace. Necklace it is. The assistant nodded. Gold or silver? What do you think is best? I asked. Well, your colleague has tan skin, so I'd recommend a gold or rose gold piece to complement her skin tone, the saleswoman said. Follow me. She brought me over to a cabinet that had beautiful gold necklaces in it and turned back to me. Are you thinking one with gems or without? She inquired. I scanned what they had laid out with a keen eye, and my gaze landed on a simple gold chain with a small emerald gem dangling in the center. It was the same color as Mia's eyes, and I knew it would look beautiful on her. That one, I said and pointed to it. I want that one, please. A great choice, sir. The assistant complimented and pulled out a set of keys from her small black apron. She swiftly unlocked the cabinet, pulled out the necklace as well as its display, and brought it back over to the table with the cash register on. The assistant reached for a small black box under the counter, but I quickly stopped her. No need to package it, I said. I'm gonna give it to her outside. No problem. She smiled. All right then, that will be $2,040. $5, sir. A few days ago that total would have given me a heart attack, but now I didn't even blink. Great, I said and slipped my wallet out of my pocket. The assistant took my card and swiped it, and then she handed it back to me with a happy smile. That's all gone through for you, she confirmed. Would you like your receipt? No, I'm good, I said and took the necklace from its display. Thanks for your help. Of course, come back any time, she chirped and waved me goodbye as I left the store. Mia turned to me as soon as I stepped back out to the street, and she had a look of intrigue on her face. So, did you change your mind when she told you the price? She asked in a teasing tone. On the contrary, I said and held up my closed hand. Close your eyes and turn around. Mia huffed but did so anyway. I unclasped the necklace and brought it delicately around her neck, and I could hear the blonde giggle to herself even though she tried to hide it. Now that she guessed it was a necklace, she scooped up her loose blonde hair and held it up a little so I could access the back of her neck. I tried not to focus on the whiff of pure strawberry and something else that sent my mind reeling a little. I clasped the necklace back up again and put my hands on her shoulders to let her know I was done. Mia turned back around with her eyes still closed. Can I open them now? She asked with a toothy grin. Go for it, I chuckled. The blonde looked down at the piece of jewelry now wrapped around her neck and gasped at the sight of it. One hand came up to gently caress the gleaming jewel, which looked even more beautiful now that we were standing in the sun. Josh, she trailed off breathlessly. This is incredible. Do you like it? I asked with an anxious smile. Like it? I love it. Mia gasped and abruptly threw her arms around me. I grunted at the impact but immediately wrapped my arms around her as well. Mia nestled into the crook of my neck and clung to me tightly, and I savored the feeling of her in my arms and waited for her to pull away first. When she did, there were tears in her eyes, and she bashfully wiped them away with a chuckle. But I don't think I can accept this, she said. You can, I reassured her. I want you to. This is a thank you for everything you've done for me so far. But I do that because I want to, not because I expect an incredibly gorgeous necklace. She tried to reason, but I noticed how she toyed with the gem. I know you don't, which is why you deserve it even more. I smiled down at her. Please accept it. It would mean a lot to me. There was a long pause as she debated it. Plus, I didn't get the receipt, so I added as I rubbed the back of my neck. Mia laughed loudly at my comment and put her hand on my bicep to brace herself. Okay, I'll accept it, Josh. She smiled. Thank you. This is the nicest thing anyone's ever gotten for me. You're welcome, I said. It matches your eyes. Mia inhaled sharply at my words, and her eyes fell to the gleaming jewel. Again. When she looked back up at me, there were tears in her eyes again, and she wrapped her arms around me for the second time. It felt like she really needed the hug, and feeling her wrap herself around me, I realized I really needed it too. I couldn't even remember the last time someone hugged me. Maybe it was at the funeral. Then again, I'd sort of just been running on autopilot, so I couldn't even remember. I let out a deep sigh of contentment and fought back the urge to kiss the top of her head that was tucked into the crook of my neck. Eventually, Mia pulled back a little and stood on her tiptoes to reach up and kiss my cheek. My eyes closed at the contact, and when I opened them again, she was back to her normal height looking up at me with a soft smile. "You're sweet," she said. "But next time, it's my turn to get you something." "Next time?" I asked with a raised eyebrow. "You think I'm gonna need more suits? Maybe we can do something outside of work next time," she reiterated with a playful grin. "And if we do, it's my turn. As long as there's a next time." I winked. "Smooth." Mia giggled and grabbed my hand so she could start leading us back down the street. "Were you this smooth before starting at Lunar Corporation, or is this another newfound ability?" "That is up for debate," I admitted and smiled as Mia subconsciously started swinging our hands to and fro. "Let's just say I never had much time to be smooth before this." "Really? You could have fooled me," my assistant commented. "You're telling me you don't have a girlfriend to practice your smooth talk on?" No girlfriend," I said. "Not for a while actually. Too busy working and being poor." Mia hummed to herself with a subtle smile. "Well, I'm sure the ladies will be throwing themselves at you now that you're all hunky-dory." "Hunky-dory?" I spluttered out a laugh. "You know what I mean," the blonde groaned. "And that's not to say you don't have anything going for you but your looks, by the way." "Good to know," I chuckled. "What about you? Do you have a boyfriend who gets to listen to you say things like hunky-dory all the time?" "Haha," she said dryly. "And no, I do not. No one has had the pleasure of hearing me say things like that for a long time." "How come?" I asked. "I mean, you're stunning." "Oh, am I now?" Mia teased and looked up at me from the corner of her eye. "Yeah, you are," I said as if it was obvious because it was. Ever since I'd shifted, I'd grown a hell of a lot more confident, which I suppose was a pretty good thing considering Mia seemed to like it. "Well, I was in college before this job, so I guess that was when I sort of tried out relationships," my assistant explained. "But after that I was married to my work." "As dumb as it sounds." "It doesn't sound dumb," I reassured her. "I get it. I've been like that too. I sort of forgot to live a little." "Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it." Mia frowned. "The past 4 years have sort of been a blur. I can't even remember the last time I saw my brother and sister." "You've got siblings?" I asked in surprise. "Yeah, an older brother who can be a living hell at times. He's super protective," she snorted. "And a younger sister. But our mom died a little after I graduated, and we never knew our dad." "Geez, Mia, I'm so sorry," I said with a wince. "She was an orphan, just like me. All this time I'd had no idea she'd been through the same thing I was going through now." "It's okay," she reassured me. "I've healed a little. It doesn't hurt as much to talk about her as it did back then. That's why I want to look out for you. You know? Because I've been there. And it sucks." "I thank you for telling me," I said honestly. "Of course," the blonde chirped. "It only seems fair you get to know me little. After all, we are going to be working together every day." "Yeah, you're right," I said with a breathless chuckle. "Did you want to catch a cab back to Lunar Corporation?" "Let's walk," she said with a squeeze to my hand. "More time to talk, right?" "Right." I nodded. "Let's walk." So we did. Granted, it took us a little while, but it was nice just getting to talk to Mia outside of work. No awkward conversations about my parents or what I was going to have to expect being the new CEO. It was nice, but I should have known that nice feeling wasn't gonna last forever. As soon as we stepped not even 1 foot into the reception area, Ollie shot up from her desk with a severe look on her face. "Sir, the board wants to see you," she said in a grave tone. "And they don't want to be kept waiting for too long." "It's serious?" I asked as Mia and I started to power walk toward the elevator. From what I could tell, yes, it's serious. The receptionist nodded, and her eyes followed us without turning her body. "All right, thanks, Ollie," I said as we passed her. "Good luck," I heard the stunning receptionist mumble to herself as we entered the elevator and pressed the button to take us to floor 80. I let out a deep breath as the elevator shot up toward the top of the building, and Mia reached down to give my hand a reassuring squeeze. "You'll be fine, Josh," she whispered. "It's probably about yesterday. And that's supposed to make me feel better?" I weakly joked, but I could feel my heart pounding against my chest. Sure, I was the CEO, and it wasn't like they could fire me or anything, but I still wanted to get their approval. These were people who had worked with my parents, and I didn't want to let them think they'd raised an incompetent idiot for a son. They're just gonna talk to you, the blonde reassured. Seriously, you will be fine. Okay. I let out a long puff of air and squeezed her hand back right as the elevator door pinged open. I'll see you in the office? Sure. Mia nodded with a small smile. Good luck. I'll need it, I joked as I reluctantly stepped outside of the elevator and released her hand. Mia gave me a weak wave before she pressed the button to take her a few floors. Then I was left alone in the long stretch of hallway again, just like yesterday. After one last bracing breath, I walked the rest of the way to the double doors and pushed them open. The board greeted me with fleeting smiles, and I could tell they made a quick assessment of my outfit. Victor especially gave a subtle approving nod. At least that put me somewhat at ease. Good morning, Josh, the old businessman greeted. How are you this morning? I'm good, yeah, I'm good, I said, and I tried not to sound as nervous as I was feeling as I sat down on the chair closest to the door. The board members were sitting in the same positions they were yesterday, so I assumed that was the usual layout for them. Now I was facing them at the head of the table, and I suddenly felt like I was even more under a microscope. I believe congratulations are in order, Victor said and held out his arms. You successfully shifted for the first time yesterday, did you not? I did. I nodded and swallowed the lump in my throat. It was unexpected. I take it Mia explained everything to you? Susan asked with an inquisitive raise of her thin eyebrow. She did, I confirmed, and I watched the tape my parents left for me. The board, bar Collins, shared a fleeting look of sadness at the mention of my mom and dad, but they quickly composed themselves and returned their stares back to me. And have you made a decision on what you want to do regarding your new form? Victor asked with an eager look in his gray eyes. I have. I nodded firmly. I'm not taking shift stoppers. I'm staying as an alpha. Very well, Josh. Victor's thin lips quirked up in a smirk, and he nodded his head in respect. We are glad to hear that. But there are some risks we have to make you aware of, Lexi quickly added. Accepting your wolf side will put a target on your back. And we think whoever broke into the warehouse yesterday will be the main threat, Susan said. The fact that those wolves managed to break in and ransack our stock proves to be a major security risk, Victor said sternly. If you hadn't been down there, who knows how long it could have taken for them to be dealt with. So we up security, I said as I sat forward in my chair. Surely we have the budget. Collins shuffled in his seat and pushed his thick square glasses up his large nose. I raised my eyebrow at him and opened my hands on the table as if to urge him to speak. It's not as easy as that, Josh, he replied begrudgingly. And why is that? I asked. If there's been a major breach in security, then we need to do something about it before it happens again. We can move some funds around. Victor cut in and gave Collins a sharp look. Josh is right. Whoever this pack was will likely try and return. Of course they will, Collins hissed. He let one of them go. Josh showed mercy, Benjamin. Susan reminded him like a scolding mother. We reviewed the footage ourselves. The beta had no choice but to obey her alpha's orders. He allowed her to scurry back and tell him everything she found out. The greasy-haired treasurer added. Might I remind you that one of the things she found out was you are a supreme alpha. I'm not scared of whatever they try to throw my way, I said coolly. What I care about is protecting this company. But that beta wasn't a threat, and by letting her go, I got a message through to her alpha. What message was that, Josh? Victor asked in curiosity. To not try any shit like that again. I shrugged. And you think her alpha is just gonna stop? Collins scoffed and I squinted my eyes at his condescending tone. I think I'd be an idiot to assume he would. I growled back, and the treasurer's spine stiffened. Which is why we need more security. We need to be prepared. Josh is right, Lexi quickly agreed. We can get more guards. Good. I nodded and sat back in my chair. There is still the matter of who is behind all this, Victor added with a sigh. There are many wolf factions and packs who are against our company and the products we produce. Some wolves want to just run rampant and free like our true nature yearns for, Susan explained. But if we were to fully give in to our wolf side, the human world would be in incredible danger. Without things like aggression regulators, heat suppressants, and shift stoppers, there would be no way to control ourselves, Lexi said with a serious look on her face. It would end in catastrophe. Your mother and father worked hard at trying to build a better world for our kind by starting this company, the chairman said proudly. Our true nature does not mix well with the humans we share this world with. Your father used to say it would be like leaving chickens to sleep with foxes. So it's a pact behind this attack? I asked. Sorry, I'm still wrapping my head around all this wolf stuff. From the fact it was only betas attacking as well as the fact the woman you let go told you about her alpha, we know they came from a pack, Victor explained. Every pack must have an alpha leading it. And if the alpha gives the pack an order, they have no choice but to follow it. And omegas, where do they fall in? I asked. Omegas are usually mated to an alpha, Victor said. Some alphas value them as their equal in a sense and have them as their second in common. But most alphas are usually possessive over their omegas. And how can you tell the difference? I asked. You said there were only betas in the warehouse yesterday. How did you know? Eye color, Collins said bluntly. It's their eye color. Mia's eyes were a different color to the wolves we were attacking. First I hadn't thought much about it, but now I was wondering why she would keep something like that from me. Yes, eye color is the most obvious difference. Victor nodded. Beta eyes turn yellow, whereas alphas are bright red. And let me guess, Omega's eyes are blue? I asked, and when the board members nodded, I let out a breath. I see. It all made sense. The fact Mia smelled different and sweet like I couldn't get enough of it. And the way I had shifted into my superior form after seeing her in danger during the fight. She had to be an Omega. Even if I didn't know about the eye color thing, I still knew there was something different about her. Something that tapped into my instincts and made me want to protect her. If she really was an Omega, then I wouldn't treat her like a possession. Mia had held her own pretty damn well yesterday, and so far I had been the one who needed guiding and nurturing in this strange new world I'd been plunged into. I'd have to talk to her about it and figure out why she didn't want to tell me the truth. There must have been a good reason for it. She didn't strike me as the sort to be untruthful just for the hell of it. Collins must have picked up on how troubled I looked as I put the pieces together, and the greasy prick smirked at me. I glared back and he immediately turned his head to stare at the wooden table in front of him. There is something else we need to make you aware of, Josh, Susan said in a sympathetic tone. There were some attacks while your parents were alive. They started in the last year, but they were sporadic and messy. In the beginning, there were weeks to months between the attacks. Then they started occurring with more frequency, but there's been nothing since a few weeks before your parents' death. We hoped that would be the end, but it seems that is not the case, Victor sighed. I felt a sense of duty wash over me to put an end to this thing. My parents must have worked so hard to stop things like this from happening, and what kind of son would I be if I just trashed their legacy and let this pack get away with destroying our company? I couldn't let all their work be for nothing. I wouldn't. I'm not gonna let them get away with this, I said, and my fists clenched atop the table. We need to catch these guys out and learn more. That's the only way we're gonna be able to stop these attacks once and for all. Find the infection and pull it out from the root, Victor hummed in. Agreement. We'll increase security starting today. I want in on the action, I said firmly. I want updates on security and if anyone else is trying to break in. You've proved you can handle yourself, Josh, the TAN chairman complimented. But you still have much to learn about your new form. Mia will help you learn more. If we are going to eradicate this problem, it is imperative you become fully confident in your abilities as soon as possible. Spoken like a true businessman, I joked. Mia's helped me enough so far, though I'm sure she can teach me more. Then I believe that's all we have to discuss, Victor said with a fleeting smile. It is good to know Jasper and Mary have raised a son as ambitious and passionate about this company as they were. I nodded at his words and swallowed hard. I didn't think I'd ever get over hearing shit like that. Hearing people compare me to them. In a way it felt like I actually was carrying on their legacy, like a part of them was here. As I was here, I stood up from my seat before I could start to get upset, and headed for the door. Keep me posted, I said, and looked directly into Victor's stormy gray eyes. We will, He nodded. We'll see you soon, Josh. See you, I said before I opened the door and headed straight back for the elevator. I punched the number for floor 99, and I was up to my office within seconds. Mia was sitting at her desk flicking through the travel guide that had been there the day before, and as soon as she realized I was there, her face immediately lit up. How was it? She asked with a hopeful smile, only for it to slowly disappear. Once she noticed the severe look on my face. Are you an Omega? I asked bluntly. I didn't know how else to go about it. I mean, was there even a right way to call her out? Her green eyes immediately looked away from mine and down to her white heels, while her blonde hair created a canopy to hide her face from me. I told you, Josh, I'm a beta, my assistant mumbled. You don't have to lie to me, Mia, I said as I stepped up to her desk. Her eyes slowly trailed up to my face, and I could see the conflict inside them, like the leaves of trees being caught in a hard wind. God, I could look into her eyes forever. Without thinking, I reached out and stroked her chin with the pad of my thumb, and I waited patiently for her to respond. I didn't want to rush her. This was her truth to tell, and I wasn't going to force it out of her. What makes you think I'm an Omega? She whispered shakily, and I could see tears shimmering in the green pools of her eyes. I had my suspicions, I murmured, like how protective I felt over you during the fight and the way you smell better than any woman I've ever smelled before. My eyes widened as I realized how creepy that sounded, but Mia chuckled to herself anyway. You know what I mean, I huffed with a bashful smile. I'm sure you smell great regardless, but you're digging yourself a hole here, Josh, Mia giggled. Yeah, you're right, I groaned. Back to the serious stuff, I also noticed your eyes were a different color. Mia looked down in shame, but I tilted her chin back up so she would look at me. Just tell me the truth, Mia, I said. It's not gonna make me see you any differently. I promise. Mia took a deep breath before her hand reached up to my wrist. She ran her thumb over my skin, and she could probably feel my pulse thumping against it. Then, after a few moments of her debating if she was going to say anything, she finally did. Yes, Josh, she said breathlessly. I'm an Omega. Chapter 5. Mia winced as if expecting me to lash out and yell at her for being dishonest, but I just kept my hand on her chin. She slowly opened her eyes and they widened in surprise to see me still looking down at her with a smile. You're not mad? She asked. Of course I'm not mad, I chuckled. You had your reasons for not telling me. I'm sure. Well, yeah, but you should be mad, she protested. I lied to you, Josh. And you just said you had your reasons for doing so. I fired back with a shrug. It's really okay. I'm not upset with you, Mia. Mia trailed off with a sigh. Can you stop being so nice? I laughed at her question, and I could see a subtle smile make its way onto her face. She pulled my hand away from her chin and threaded our fingers together. Then she toyed with my hands as a distraction as she worked out what to say next, and I remained patient as always. The only reason I lied was because Omegas aren't taken seriously, she began, with a sad frown. Not just in day-to-day life but in the business world. Especially, everyone sees us as something that needs to be protected. Even though we're higher on the food chain, we're still considered among the weakest wolves. And I softly prompted her to carry on. And I didn't want you to think less of me, she said as her green eyes reluctantly met mine. Jasper and Mary, your parents respected me. They never saw me as just an Omega. They saw me for my skills and for my potential. But they were the ones to warn me about what being an Omega can mean in this world. In what way? I asked. I grew up on a ranch in Nebraska, Mia said with a sad chuckle. My siblings. And I never really had to deal with the social side of being a werewolf. Growing up, it was nice, but it meant when I went to college in the city I had no idea how other wolves treated Omegas. Is it really that bad? I couldn't hide the wince on my face. Yeah, Josh, the blonde said with downcast eyes. It's really that bad. Found out about Lunar Corporation drugs in my third year of college. The first 2 years I had to spend it virtually. If I even set foot on campus, I would have been raped. That's how bad it is for Omegas without these drugs. Mia, that's awful. I struggled to find the right words. The only reason you haven't done it is because I'm still taking the scent suppressants, the blonde said with a sad look in her eye. I felt my blood boil at the thought. I mean, as much as her smell was alluring, I didn't think I could ever let myself just pounce on her and take her against her will. Mia, I would never. Even if you didn't want to, it's a natural instinct for alphas, my assistant explained. You wouldn't be able to stop yourself. I hated that she was most probably right, and I thanked whatever werewolf deity that she'd been taking those pills. I didn't know how we could go on working so closely if I had just taken her as soon as I'd seen her. But it was kinda weird I could still smell her. I guess it must have something to do with me being a supreme alpha, because she said those guys at college couldn't smell her afterward. That meant they just chose to be assholes. I started taking scent suppressants every single day to hide my true scent and help protect me, but even that wasn't enough, she sighed. I had so many alpha assholes on campus trying to claim me as their own, even though my scent was hidden. They could resist the urge to rape me, but they still wanted me as their own. One night, I even woke up to one of them in my dorm trying to bite me. What? I gritted my teeth in anger. It's the way an alpha can show he's mated with a wolf, she explained and ran a hand through her long blonde hair. It's supposed to be done with the Omega's consent, but as you can guess, some alphas don't care. The school didn't care much either, they just gave him a slap on the wrist. So I started taking the scent suppressants, and I haven't really shifted in front of anyone in years. Jesus Christ, Mia, I'm so sorry, I said, and I reached for her other hand and threaded our fingers together again. You don't have to worry about me treating you any differently. I still see you in the exact same way. A strong, brave, amazing woman who has saved my ass since I started here. Stop it, Mia giggled with teary eyes. I mean it, I stressed. Mia, you're incredible. And that's not going to change just because you're an Omega. You really mean it? My assistant asked with a trembling lip and wide teary eyes. Of course I do, I reassured. It changes nothing. I promise. Mia suddenly wrapped her arms around my middle and clung to me tightly. Encased her in my arms and held her even closer to my chest, and I could feel her tears staining my shirt. But I didn't care. She needed to release this. All this pent-up emotion she must have been bottling up for a while now. I couldn't imagine what it must have been like for her in college, from being thrust into a world where everyone looks down on you, yet everyone wants to make you theirs. It was sick and twisted, and I knew if anyone even dared try and claim her again, they'd have to deal with me first. Not because I was overly protective of her and didn't think she could stand up for herself, but because she shouldn't have to. Someone should have stuck up for her in college. Someone should have done something to stop it from getting to the point of a random creep breaking into her room while she slept and trying to bite her. My arms tightened around her shoulders at the thought, and I had to hold back a growl. I definitely needed to take an aggression regulator at some point. Mia was right, it really didn't take a lot to provoke me now. You have no idea how much this means to me, I heard her whisper, which was muffled by the fabric of my shirt. I didn't say anything back. I just held her. My chin rested on the top of her head, and I rubbed soothing circles on her back. After about 3 minutes of us just holding each other, the blonde pulled away from my embrace. All right, enough crying before I totally ruin my makeup. Let's get back to it. Mia quickly composed herself and dried her eyes before running back over to her desk. I need you to sign off on some papers regarding the destroyed stock. Cleanup finished yesterday and got rid of what was contaminated or unusable, so now we just need your signature. I'll sign it, but I want to see the damage for myself, I said as I walked over to her desk and took the fountain pen resting on it to sign the documents. But the destroyed stock is gone, she said with a frown. I know, but I want to see how much is gone and how much this guy has cost me, I said. You sound like your dad, the blonde said with a chuckle. I think it's the suit, I joked before I focused on flipping through the pages and signing my name on the dotted lines. It most certainly is the suit, Mia giggled and waited patiently for me to finish signing the pages. All right, thank you very much, Mr. St. James. I'll get those sent off for you. I snorted at the over-exaggerated preppy tone Mia used as she gathered up the papers and neatly filed them in her bottom drawer. You want to come down to the warehouse with me? I asked as I adjusted my cufflinks. Sure thing. The blonde shut the drawer and came around to my side. Don't worry about the stock we lost. We can make up for it. It's if this keeps happening that we'll need to start being really concerned. How much product did we lose? I asked as I started to lead the way to the elevator. 100 boxes, Mia said. Last time they attacked it was less than half of that. So they're getting more ballsy. I grumbled as I punched the W button. Great. We've never been able to kill any of them before, Mia said pointedly. Maybe it spooked them. I highly doubt it, I said with a shake of my head. Everything I've learned about werewolves so far tells me they're stubborn to a fault. And this alpha guy is not going to give up just because a few of his lackeys kicked the bucket. It's worth considering though, my assistant said. Plus you showed mercy on one of his own. Is it normal to kill other wolves to protect your territory? I asked, the question that had been nagging at the back of my head ever since the attack. I'd never killed anyone before yesterday, and part of my primal instincts were telling me it was fine and normal, but the human part of me that I had lived with for almost 28 years was still in shock at what I'd had to do. It's very normal, my assistant immediately reassured me. It's a sad reality, but it's part of the reason it's so important for us to have drugs that help us control our wild side. So, I'm not going to get charged with murder one day when I'm walking down the street? I asked. No, Josh, Mia chuckled. I told you we have a team to take care of things like that. And it's part of our life, unfortunately. We have to protect what's ours. Any werewolf who enters an alpha's territory does so at his own risk. Okay. I nodded in relief. I think I needed the reassurance. Of course, she said sympathetically. It's a strange new world you've been thrust into. Our rules and laws aren't the same as the human ones you're used to. Thank God I've got you here with me then, I said and looked down at the beautiful blonde woman. Mia did a double take as she noticed me looking down at her with a soft smile, and I could see her tan cheeks flush a baby pink. Then the car dinged, and the door slid open revealing the now squeaky clean warehouse floor. Mia cleared her throat and led the way over to where the attack had taken place, and the towering shelves were way more empty than the others in the warehouse. I frowned at a dark stain that had apparently been impossible to scrub off from the concrete floor, but then I got a whiff of something sweet. My nose twitched and my eyes squinted as I tried to follow the smell. You got something, Josh? Mia asked as I crouched to the ground, and I only felt a little ridiculous as I sniffed the air. Yeah, I said and tried to focus on the lingering scent. It's sweet, like faint perfume. It must be that wolf we let go, the blonde theorized. Do you think you could follow it outside? I asked. Surely by now the wind would have gotten rid of it. Her shoes would have hit the ground, Mia said. Wolf senses are heightened and can pick up tracks from days prior. Okay, how do I focus on it? I asked as I stood up to my full height. You need to shut everything else out, my assistant explained. Wolf senses are always heightened whether you want them to be or not, but if you try and focus all your power into tracking the scent, your other senses will dull down a little. All right, I said and took a deep inhale. The weak scent of the sweet perfume filled my nostrils and I tuned out everything else around me. I tried to forget about Mia being right next to me, and I ignored the noise of the extractor fans and air conditioning whirring above me. Then I closed my eyes for a moment to really concentrate. I only focused on the smell, and the more I focused, the stronger it got. Lead the way, Josh, Mia whispered to me, and I managed to nod before I started following the smell. It led out the back exit as we expected, and as soon as I opened the door I covered my eyes from the blinding light of the sun. Threw me off a little. Not to mention the bustling streets of downtown New York, which were as loud as always, and the scent got a little weaker as I tried to recenter my focus. Keep focusing on the scent, Josh, Mia urged. You're doing great. At her words of encouragement, I took another deep inhale, and the sweet scent refilled my nostrils. It was there, and it was strong, but there was still too much going on around me for me to actually concentrate. I stopped in the middle of the sidewalk with a defeated sigh. I don't know if I can do this, Mia, I admitted. It's overwhelming out here. Then let's take baby steps, she suggested. You could try grounding yourself. Grounding? I frowned. Like something physical to block out the rest of the chaos of New York. The blonde explained. With all the other distractions out of the way, you should be able to focus on following the scent. Then, after a little bit of practice, you won't need something to ground you anymore. You'll just be able to focus on tracking Huh, I hummed. Like holding on to something? Yeah. Mia nodded enthusiastically. Try my hand. I looked down at her outstretched palm. I couldn't believe how many times we'd actually held hands today, but this was the first time there had been a lead up to it. Before, she just grabbed it spontaneously. It almost made me nervous now that I had time to think about holding it. I took her hand in mine before I could look like a creep just staring at it, and pulled her to my side. Then I inhaled deeply and picked up the scent. Again, Mia squeezed my hand just as I was starting to get distracted by the sounds of horns honking, and I felt my concentration hone back in on the scent, as well as Mia's hand. She was right. From just her touch alone, I was able to focus way better than before. Sure, having her hand in mine was somewhat of a distraction, but it kept me focused on my own body rather than the things happening around me. The scent became stronger the more I inhaled, and after a few minutes of slowly walking down the street, I picked up the trail like it was nothing. I led Mia down the sidewalk as I followed it and sniffed the air every few seconds to make sure I was still on the right track. I probably looked like a nutjob to anyone passing by on the street, but I was too in the zone to care. I must have been following the scent for around 20 minutes when it suddenly got weaker. I halted in my tracks and looked up to see we were directly outside of a small indie coffee shop. I'm losing it, I informed Mia. There's too many other scents in there. It was hard to distinguish one scent from another, and the sweetness of the one we'd followed here started to turn sour as it merged with others inside. The smell of freshly ground coffee was also prominent and definitely not helping the situation. Should we go in anyway? Mia suggested. We can see if that girl from yesterday works here. Good idea. I nodded. Plus, we just walked all this way. Might as well grab a coffee. You read my mind, she said and held the door open for me. As soon as we stepped inside, I knew it would be impossible to follow the scent anymore. Not only were the conversations of the customers and the whirring of the coffee machines incredibly loud, the amalgamation of smells completely overpowered my nose. Hell, even if my prey was in the shop, I wasn't sure I would be able to tell. Since the woman had been shifted when I saw her, so she had different features and a different eye color than she normally would have. We headed up to the barista waiting to serve us, and I read her handwritten name tag which said Emily. She was strikingly beautiful with ivory skin and shoulder-length dark red hair that looked like silk. Her lips were the same color as her hair, and they were plump, heart-shaped and almost made her look like a doll. The most striking thing about her though was her eyes, which were light blue and seemed to quickly analyze me as I came to stand opposite her to order. Hi, I greeted with a brief smile. I'll have an Americano, please. I looked down at Mia as a sign to tell the barista her order, and she seemed pleasantly surprised I was offering. I'll have a flat white, please, the blonde said with a small nod. Is that everything? Emily asked in a slightly sharp tone, and her blue eyes flickered from Mia to me repeatedly. Yeah, that's everything. I chuckled awkwardly and pulled out my credit card to pay. Are you sitting in or taking out? The barista asked curtly. In, Mia said with a confused frown. Thank you. Take a seat. I'll bring it over to your table. Emily turned her back on us to make the drinks before we could even say anything else. That was weird, Mia mumbled to me as we turned to find a seat. Tell me about it, I mumbled back to her as I scanned the free tables. Maybe she's having a bad day. There was a nice little nook in front of the windowsill in the corner of the coffee shop that screamed rustic. The walls were brick and the furniture looked like it had come from a thrift store. Mia sat down on a tattered dark purple chaise lounge, and I took a seat on an old leather armchair facing the rest of the shop. So why do you think she came here? Mia asked and crossed one leg over the other. Caffeine boost after the fight? I joked, which made Mia raise an eyebrow. I don't know. Maybe she works here and has no other place to go? Or maybe she thought she could lay low here for a little while in case we went after her, given how crowded this place is. Yeah, the blonde Omega agreed. That still means our trail ran cold. Well, if we can garner anything about this alpha, I'm sure he'll send out more lackeys to do his dirty work, I said distastefully. I cleared my throat as I spotted Emily making her way over to us with our drinks in her hands and a firm frown on her face. Mia caught on immediately, and she pretended to check her nails as the barista approached and placed our drinks on the small coffee table. An Americano and a latte, she said shortly. Oh, I ordered a flat white, Mia said and awkwardly raised her hand a little. Do you want me to remake it? Emily asked as she stared down at the blonde. Without blinking. No, it's okay, my assistant said with a forced smile. Thanks. Enjoy, the red-headed barista said unenthusiastically before she headed back to the counter. I can go get her to make you another one, I offered. No, it's fine, Mia chuckled and brought the drink up to her lips. I don't want to give her another reason not to like us. I don't think asking for another coffee is going to change how she feels about us, I snorted. But if you're sure. I'm sure, thank you, Mia reassured and took a sip of her drink. And thanks for getting this for me. Of course, I said with a casual shrug. So, back to the pack. My eyes flickered over to where Emily was standing at the cash register, and, despite the fact she was serving another customer, her eyes were on me. Shuffled uncomfortably under her stare and took a long swig of my Americano. Back to the matter at hand, I corrected myself so it was less obvious what we were talking about. Where do we go from here? I say we wait it out, Mia suggested. It's like you said, what happened yesterday probably won't deter this asshole, so we just need to wait for another group to try and get in, and then we go from there. Another wild scent goose chase? I teased. If that's what it takes. The blonde winked and took another swig of her drink. I could still feel eyes on me, and in my peripherals I could see Emily staring at me while she brought over a drink for a customer sitting about 10 feet away from us. Mia followed my gaze, but as soon as she turned her head, Emily rushed to put the drink down and fast-walked back to her register. Geez, looks like someone's jealous, Mia mumbled under her breath. What do you mean? I asked in confusion. The barista, she said plainly. She's clearly jealous. And I'd bet money. It's because I'm sitting having coffee with an incredibly attractive man and not her. Hang on, you think she's jealous? I laughed. Because I'm here with you? It's pretty obvious, Josh. The blonde chuckled and took another sip of her drink. I don't blame her. If I were her, I'd be pretty jealous too. Are you flirting with your boss? I teased. Because to me it sounds like you're flirting with your boss. I'm just stating the facts. Mia shrugged. I've had girls give me death glares like that before just because they liked my purse. Trust me, I know the reasoning behind them. And you don't think it's got anything to do with the fact we sound like we're crazy talking about fighting in packs? Good point. Why don't we take this back to the office? Mia suggested and put her coffee back down on the table. What we are isn't exactly common knowledge, and we might want to keep it that way. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea to me, I said as I pushed myself up from my chair. Let's head out. Mia and I started to make our way through the shop and headed for the exit, but not before I caught Emily giving us a death stare as we passed the register. What the hell is her problem? I whispered to Mia as I held the door open for her. That's not the woman from yesterday, is it? No, not unless she's dyed her hair and got plastic surgery all in under 24 hours, my assistant replied. Maybe she knows her? She was listening in, I pointed out. And she couldn't take her eyes off me when we were talking. Or maybe she was having a shitty day, and was wondering what the hell we were talking about, Mia snickered. And she probably couldn't take her eyes off you because of how good you look in that suit. Or that too, I said amusedly. Mia fished out her phone and gave Roland a call. And she told him where we were waiting for him to pick us up. The suave driver arrived in under 2 minutes, and we both filed into the back seat and told him to take us back to Lunar Corp. So, and tell me if I'm crossing a line here, have you decided what you're gonna do with your parents' penthouse? Mia asked as she settled into her seat. Honestly, not really. I exhaled sharply. I haven't actually been there since finding out about what happened to them. Well, if you want some moral support, I could go with you, the blonde kindly suggested. If I'm being too pushy, please just tell me. And you're not being pushy, I cut her off with a light laugh. Moral support. Sounds good. I haven't had the balls to do it on my own, but I think having you at my side, I could do anything. Mia smiled warmly at my words, and I could see her cheeks flush that beautiful baby pink again before she leaned over to the window separating us from the driver. I tried not to look at her cleavage as she did so, and I had to grind my teeth. down to stop myself from completely wolfing out in the back of the car. Gee, drove me absolutely crazy, and I knew that wasn't just because of my heightened emotions. Mia told Roland to take us to my parents' address instead, and before I even had time to fully prepare myself, we were pulling up to the huge apartment complex. My parents lived in the penthouse suite of a super expensive building that mostly housed celebrities. They were hardly there considering how much time they spent at Lunar Corporation, but it was their home, a luxurious one at that. I'd always been jealous of the place. I mean, it was hard not to be. The lobby was nicer than my apartment, and the sheer size of that alone dwarfed my box of a home. I kinda started to disassociate as we made our way to the elevator. There was a special key we had to use in the elevator to allow us access to the top floor, so I pulled it out of my pocket with trembling hands. I struggled sliding it into the lock, and Mia reached over and gently put her hands over mine. She sent me a reassuring look, and I let her take the keys from me so she could do it. The key twisted and clicked into place, and the penthouse button lit up on the button panel. Mia pressed it and pulled the key out but kept them in her hands. There was still another door we'd have to unlock, and I didn't know if I'd be able to unlock that one either. I didn't know why I was so shaky. Admittedly, this was kind of a big deal. Going back to your parents' place for the first time after their death is bound to elicit some emotions, but I was feeling an overwhelming sense of grief like never before. My chest felt constricted, and I could feel my heart beat fast against my ribcage, as if she could hear it, and maybe she could. Mia took my hand in hers as the door slid open silently, and we stood face to face with the pearl-white front door of my parents' apartment. The door was directly in front of us and illuminated by one white lamp that shone down like a spotlight on the door. Felt like we were in a horror movie as we walked closer, and I felt my breathing start to turn ragged. You know, we don't have to do this if you don't want to, Mia murmured and squeezed my hand. It's not too late to just go home. No, I need to do this, I said as I tried to catch my breath. I've been putting it off. Got to rip the band-aid off at some point, right? But you don't have to rip it off if you're not ready, the blonde advised. It can wait. No, I shook my head. We're here now. So, let's just go inside. If we left now, I probably wouldn't be able to buck up the courage to come back for a super long time, and I knew it was better to do this sooner rather than later. Mia sighed but stuck the key in the lock and twisted it until the door swung open. We were greeted by a dark hallway with dark wooden floors and pale white shelves with pictures lining the walls. Mia hung back and let me take the first step when I was ready, and as soon as I crossed the threshold I felt like a heavy weight suddenly dropped onto my shoulders. I walked through the hallway like a ghost while trying not to look at the pictures on the walls, trying not to see their faces smiling back at me. Even though the lights were off, I could still see perfectly into the living room. I figured since I'd shifted, I must have gained some sort of night vision, because it was just as clear to me as it would be if the curtains were wide open in the middle of the day. On the coffee table, there was a chipped mug that I'd painted for my parents in kindergarten. They'd kept it all these years, and as I got closer I could see a red lip stain from my mother's lipstick. I turned my head away from it as I felt my chest tighten again, only for my eyes to catch one of my father's crosswords lying on the kitchen table, which was attached to the living room in the corner. His fountain pen had leaked onto the white marble of the counter, and as I timidly walked toward it, I could see he'd only finished half of his crossword. There was one word he'd half written down, but he must have gotten distracted and abandoned it. Deaf. I skimmed over the clue and tried to laugh at the irony, but it came out as defeat. It was too much at once. Being here and seeing the dust settle on all their things that were left untouched and unused since the day they left didn't feel right. Felt like I was an intruder. Like I'd gone to their gravestones and stomped on the dirt. I needed to get out of here. I needed to get as far away as possible. I didn't notice I'd been hyperventilating until Mia put her hand on my back and started to rub soothing circles on it. Breathe, Josh, she said softly. You're feeling emotions 100 times more intensely because of your powers. I gritted my teeth as a sharp pain shot through my chest, and I felt my claws start to push through the tips of my fingers. I was shifting, and there was nothing I could do to stop it. Breathe, Josh, Mia repeated, but she didn't sound scared. I'm right here. With you. I couldn't stop thinking about my family. I couldn't stop looking at the parts of them that still remained in this place they called home. Pictures of me in my childhood. Their wedding photos hung proudly on the wall, in silver ornamental frames. I felt my fangs pierce my lip as they pushed through, and I hissed at the pain. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop it. My chest ached and felt like it was full to the brim with water. I staggered down onto one knee and clutched at where my heart was. I fought back a groan, but it was useless. I was in agony, paralyzing agony, and my parents were dead. The last thing I heard before I blacked out was Mia's voice calling out my name. Chapter 6. I stirred with a groan, and it felt like there were weights pinning me down as I tried to sit up from wherever I was lying. I had no idea what had happened. One minute I was in panic mode, the next all I could see was black. Where was Mia? Was she okay? Had something happened? Had the pack tracked us back to here? Had. Hey Josh, relax. Mia's voice immediately soothed me, and I felt her arms pushing my shoulders down. You passed out. Shit. I trailed off and put my hand on my forehead, which was cold and wet. What the hell is that? It's a wet towel, the blonde informed me with a little laugh. I'm taking care of you, Buster. Don't go ruining all my hard work. Yes, ma'am, I muttered and let my arms flop at my side on what I realized was the couch. I passed out. Yeah, your emotions overpowered you, which is completely normal, my assistant explained, and her hand rubbed soothing patterns on my stiff shoulder. God, that's embarrassing, I grumbled. It's not, Mia said firmly. It's going to take you a little while to get used to all these changes, physically and emotionally. I took a few deep breaths to make sure I was completely calm and level-headed before I removed the towel from my head and dumped it on the floor. Then I slowly opened my eyes to see Mia kneeling down beside my head, and she was still rubbing circles on my shoulder. You know, there's no shame in taking the shift stoppers while you're grieving, the blonde Omega murmured. Mia, I've gone my whole life being a nobody, I said with a weak chuckle. I can't just give up such an awesome thing because I'm grieving. But there'd be no shame in it. I know. I cut her off and brought my hand up to softly rest on hers. But I can't do it. I can't go back to how I used to be. I think if I did, it would only make the grieving worse. Because I'd be mourning not only the loss of my parents but the loss of part of me as well. I get you, my assistant agreed with a sigh. Just know that I'll support you in whatever you choose. Thanks, Mia, I muttered sleepily, and I knew the weight behind my eyes was probably from exhaustion. Get some rest, the blonde soothed and brushed some of my hair out of my face. I need to get back to my place, I weakly protested. We can stay here, Mia offered. If you want to, obviously, but I'll stay here with you. I weighed whether or not it was worth me getting up and traveling all the way back to my apartment. My emotional episode had really knocked a lot of energy out of me, and quite frankly, I didn't even know if I had the energy to even get up. All right, I sighed. You can take their bed. No, no, no. Mia immediately protested and shook her head. No way. You can have their bed. Mia, I don't even think I can lift my head, let alone walk to the bedroom. I snorted. Take it. I'll stay on the couch. Are you sure? She asked with a reluctant frown. I'm sure. I nodded. You can use some of my mom's clothes. Everything of theirs is still here. I don't want to use her clothes, Josh, Mia said softly. That feels a little too close to home. She wouldn't care, I reasoned. But I would, she fired back. I'll make do. Just don't come in if you don't want to see me in my underwear. I must have blushed bright red because Mia covered her mouth with her hand to stifle a laugh. I'll, make sure to steer clear then, I managed to get out. All right, Mia giggled. If you need me, just knock. Okay, I murmured. Good night, Mia. Good night, Josh, the Omega whispered before she headed back down the hall to where my parents' bedroom was. The truth was I didn't know if I could bear sleeping in their bed. At least, not tonight. Just being in their living room was already enough. It would be like breaking the sanctity of their home, with Mia staying there. It sort of broke an emotional seal around the place. One I didn't have to break. I felt at ease with her being here with me, and I knew if she hadn't been, I would have just crawled my ass home. I readjusted on the leather couch and draped my arm over my eyes to block out my night vision. Then my attempt to get some sleep started. But my mind was running 1,000 miles a second and I was trying not to Think about the remnants of my parents that I was completely surrounded by. Mia was in the other room. That's what I kept telling myself. She was there. With me and I wasn't alone. As soon as I started thinking about her, I found my brain slowly quieted down. It was a weird feeling, like when she had grabbed my hand earlier today when I was tracking that scent. Except this time it was just the thought of her alone that grounded me. I must have dozed off shortly after and I slept like a rock because when I woke up, the sun was shining through the now open curtains. My parents' apartment was lit up by the golden hues of the morning sun, and as I stirred from my sleep, the strong aroma of frying bacon filled my nose. I rose up like a mummy in a fucking tomb because of how good it smelled and I drifted toward the kitchen without even having to think about it. Mia was standing at the stove with a spatula in her hand and a frying pan in the other. She was still wearing the same clothes from yesterday and she was swinging her hips side to side as she hummed a little tune to herself. Good morning, the blonde chirped as she sensed my approach. I found some bacon and bread left in the freezer. I hope you don't mind. With how good that smells. I joked. I think I can get over it. I came to stand next to her and watched as she expertly flipped over all the slices of bacon and pressed the cooked side down with the spatula. She carried on humming to herself even with me standing beside her, and I watched her work with a smile on my face. Hey, could you toast some of the bread I got out? Mia asked without taking her eyes off the pan. It should be fully defrosted by now. Sure thing, I said and headed over to the loaf she'd left out on the side. I pulled the bread out and popped a couple pieces in the toaster. It was nice, just existing in the quiet, save for Mia's humming, and it felt strangely intimate in a way, like we were a married couple getting ready to go to work together. As soon as I realized we were standing in my parents' kitchen and that they probably did this every morning when they were alive, I felt a little bit of that peace vanish. But I didn't freak out. Not like last night. I kept my breathing calm and controlled, and I focused on the smell of the cooking bacon and the strawberry shampoo in Mia's hair. Mia must have sensed my mood change because she turned away from the stove and looked at me with a frown. You okay? She asked. Yeah. I nodded weakly. Just still feels weird being here. Staying the night is a big step, the blonde said. You should be proud of yourself. I don't know if proud is the right word for it, I scoffed. But I definitely feel like I can control my emotions better now. That's good, Josh, Mia reassured me. Really good. Suddenly the toast popped up out of the toaster and made her jump, and I couldn't help but laugh at how high she lifted off the ground. Haha, she said dryly. Make yourself useful and get some plates out. Yes, ma'am, I said with a salute, and I pulled open the top right cabinet to grab 2 of my mom's china plates. I set them near the toaster and put 2 pieces of the crispy bread on each, before making my way over to the island to give her some space. Mia then plated up the bacon and assembled our breakfast sandwiches, which she sliced into 2 pieces. No butter is tragic, I commented as she brought the plates over to the small island and set one in front of me. My magic bacon will make up for no butter. The Omega winked. Eat up. Then we can head out for work. Do we have to? I jokingly groaned and picked up my steaming sandwich. What happened to the raring and ready-to-go new CEO? Mia teased. He's tired. I fired back but couldn't hide my grin. I'm kidding. But we are gonna need to raid my parents' wardrobe. Mia's face fell at my words, and her hands paused above her sandwich. Mia, it's fine, I reassured the blonde and took a bite. Then I groaned at the taste and flavor on my tongue. Oh my god, this really is magic bacon, I managed to mumble through a mouthful. See, told you, Mia said with a smug smile that quickly faded. But about your parents' clothes, I don't know if I can wear your mom's things, Josh. You really want to go to work in the same clothes as yesterday? I asked with a raised eyebrow. Mia huffed and her shoulders sagged in defeat. You're sure you don't mind? She asked after a moment of silence. I'm sure, I said. And I'd actually feel more comfortable wearing my dad's things if you're wearing my mom's. It sorta lessens the guilt. He'd want you to wear his suits though, Mia pointed out. I'm just their assistant. You weren't just their assistant, I immediately protested. Mia, they entrusted you with everything, and with helping me, and from what you've told me about how they treated you, they saw you as a hell of a lot more than just their assistant. The blonde smiled at my words before taking a bite of her sandwich. We didn't really speak after that. We sorta just tucked into our sandwiches and savored every bite. When the plates were empty and there were literally no crumbs left, Mia grabbed both of them and took them over to the sink. Go pick out something for me to wear then, handsome, Mia said with a dramatic sigh. I'll finish washing up in the meantime. You got it, I said and headed down the dreaded hallway leading to the bedroom. I paused in front of it and stared at the white door like it would lead to hell. But then I realized how overdramatic I was being. It was just a room. And it was just clothes. Clothes we needed to wear. I took one long deep breath before opening the door and stepping over the threshold into my parents' room. Mia had made the king-sized bed when she had gotten up this morning, and the curtains were drawn open. The space didn't look as lived in as the living room and kitchen, and I was kinda thankful for that. But there were still things. Like my mom's hairbrush on her bedside table, and my dad's book about the Civil War on his bedside table, with an old tattered bookmark hanging out of it. I kept my breathing calm though. I wouldn't focus on the little parts of them. Still here. I was going to get the clothes, get changed, and then leave. It was simple. So I made my way over to their walk-in closet and started scanning the racks for what we could both wear. My mom's selection was pretty much all black, whereas my dad's was mostly blue. In a way it was a good thing because I didn't really have to think hard about what would look best on us or anything. I spotted one of my mom's black dresses that had sheer long sleeves and I pulled it down off its hanger for Mia to wear. From the glance I got when I took it over to the bed, the dress would be a little loose on her, but it was better than wearing day-old clothes to work. Then I headed back inside to find a suit for me. I fished out a blue button-up that looked like it would fit, and I immediately stripped out of my brand-new suit to try it on. The shirt smelled like fresh laundry as I slipped it onto my arms and started to button it up. Thankfully it fit almost perfectly, and I started to realize why my dad always looked way bigger than a normal guy who didn't work out daily did. The dark blue pants I found neatly folded in his drawer fit pretty well, too. But I reused the belt Mia had picked out for me to keep them up regardless. Then I picked out a deep blue suit jacket my dad favored a lot and slipped it on. The suit didn't smell of clean laundry. It smelled of him. It was a musky tobacco scent that made me think of childhood and playing baseball in the garden with him. I breathed in deeply and savored the smell as I buttoned it up at the front. Another perfect fit. Before I first shifted, there was no way I could have ever fit in this thing. It would have looked huge on me and the fabric would have been loose and practically draping on the floor. Now I was more like my father than ever, and as I turned to the full-length mirror propped up against the wall, my eyes widened at the resemblance. Jasper St. James, you knew a good suit when you saw one, I muttered to myself as I smoothed down the fabric and removed a single crease. Suddenly Mia's words from our shopping trip crossed my mind. I still needed a tie and cufflinks. My dad had a whole rack of ties to choose from, and I decided a navy blue one was a safe option for a cohesive outfit. The cufflinks, on the other hand, were a little harder to track down. I'd rummaged through all the drawers in the walk-in wardrobe and couldn't find a single pair, so I tried his drawers in the bedroom and turned nothing up there either. My last resort was his bedside table, which was stuffed with junk, something you wouldn't expect from a man as neat and collected as Jasper St. James. As I pulled out a small book on birdwatching, I spotted a small black velvet box with a piece of paper stuck on top of it, and written across the paper was my name. I carefully wiggled the box out, opened it, and prepared for anything. It was the silver half-moon cufflinks he'd worn in the video. He must have taken them off afterward and decided he'd leave them to me. I pushed them through the buttonholes at the end of my sleeve and fastened them tightly. Then I admired them in the sunlight that beamed in through the floor-to-ceiling window. It was the cherry on top, the missing jigsaw piece to complete the puzzle. Even though I could tell how intensely I was feeling my emotions right now, like how my heart thrummed against my chest and how my skin felt red-hot, I kept it under control. My breaths were deep and slow, and I smoothed out the creases of my suit jacket to keep me distracted. This felt right. Like I was literally stepping into his shoes and taking over. And I knew today was going to be a good day. I headed back out into the kitchen with my mom's dress in my hands. The plates and pan were clean and drying on the side, and Mia was halfway through braiding her long blonde hair when I rounded the corner. Okay, I picked out a dress for you, I said to announce my presence. Josh, she trailed off as she eyed me up and down. You look like my dad, I asked with a knowing smile. Really good, I felt my cheeks burn at her comment, and I smoothed my hair back and out of my face with a bashful chuckle. Thanks, I said. I found his half-moon cufflinks inside his bedside table. He'd left them here for me. God, he loved those things, Mia said with a smile as she walked over and pulled my wrist up so she could admire them. Yeah, he did, I said. I don't think I ever saw him not wearing these things. Which makes it all the more special he left them for you, the Omega murmured, as her finger lightly trailed the outline of the half-moon. You're right, I sighed. I still don't understand how they preempted something like the plane crash happening. In this world you have to be prepared for anything, Mia admitted with sad eyes. Your parents were the founders of one of the leading werewolf pharmaceutical companies. They knew they had a target on their backs the moment they started it up. Are you saying I have a target on my back now? I asked uneasily. Mia looked away from my gaze, and her face and body language screamed discomfort. You have to be prepared for anything, Josh, she said after a moment of silence. That's what your parents did. That's why they made that video for you. And that's why your dad left you his cufflinks. In case he didn't come back, I finished. Mia was right. In this line of work I really would have to be prepared for anything. My first day proved as much. I already had a rival pack on my tail, and that felt like enough to deal with. Still, my parents had gone abroad hundreds of times before, so what made this time any different? What made them feel the need to make that video and for my dad to leave me one last gift? I decided to let the matter rest for now. I had only just become CEO and I was trying to enjoy my life instead of being stuck in a slump grieving all the time. Questions like that could be asked later, not now. I held out my mom's dress to Mia, who took it in her hands and ran her thumbs across the soft fabric. You're really sure about this? She asked as she timidly met my gaze. I'm sure. I smiled. Put it on, and then we can head to work. All right, she sighed. Call Roland. I'll go get dressed. You got it, I said and went to sit on the couch while Mia returned to my parents' room and got herself ready. I gave Roland a quick call and asked him to pick us up from the same place he'd dropped us off yesterday, and the kind driver said he'd be there within the next 10 minutes. Mia only took 5 to get ready, and then I heard the bedroom door creak open. I turned expectantly, and my breath caught at the sight of her. She looked great. Admittedly, the dress was a little too big for her, but you couldn't really tell unless you were purposefully looking for it. How do I look? Mia asked with an apprehensive smile. You look incredible, I said softly, and I watched as her smile turned genuine and bright. You do realize we look like a married couple now, though, right? Was this your plan all along? Mia asked with a teasing laugh. Maybe, I joked. Come on, Roland should be here any minute. What's your bet Ollie is going to have something to say? The blonde giggled as we headed out the front door, which I locked behind me. I tried not to think about what I was leaving behind in there. After all, I jumped the first hurdle, which was coming here in the first place. Now it was just a matter of coming back when it felt right again. Mia being there had really helped, and it was just another thing I was grateful for. Another thing she had done out of kindness rather than obligation as my executive assistant. Oh, she will definitely make a comment or two, I snorted as we got into the elevator and headed to the ground floor. You know, she hasn't recognized me. Coming in twice now. That sounds like Ollie, the blonde said in an amused tone. When we walked out into the sunlit street, Roland was waiting in his Mercedes for his. He greeted us with a wave out of his rolled-down window, and we filed into the back seat like clockwork. It didn't take long for us to reach Lunar Corporation, and I had a really good feeling about today. It was good to have a routine again, and it definitely didn't hurt that I had a beautiful blonde at my side helping me in my new role. Ollie seemed pretty surprised at our appearance and did indeed make a comment about us looking like a married couple. Mia rolled her eyes at my smug face, but I knew she didn't really mind. Besides, the blush on her tan cheeks gave it away. Mia explained there was some paperwork I'd have to go through this morning. One of the boring parts of being a CEO. I laughed her off, but when we arrived at the office and the blonde dropped a huge stack of paper on my desk, I realized what she meant. I'd been working through most of the morning without the pleasure of Mia's company for at least 3 hours when there was a heavy knock on my door. I suspected it was my assistant, so I just called out to her, but when I heard the door creak open and didn't hear a response from the Omega, I looked up. from the papers on my desk to see a familiar face I definitely wasn't expecting to see today. Maddie, I asked with a surprised grin. What are you doing here? I stood up to greet him as he fully entered my office with a huge smile on his face. Matt was way more tan than he'd ever been. He'd used to be as pale as a ghost, but ever since he'd been traveling around the world, the sun had done him a huge favor. He was wearing a red Hawaiian shirt and white shorts and looked like a tourist, and I had no idea how Ollie let him in dressed like that. Matt and I used to get mistaken for brothers growing up because we both used to have super curly black hair. Matt's curls still remained intact, whereas mine only really appeared if my hair got wet or it was really humid. He had a good physique, especially since going abroad and walking everywhere, and I could see the slight look of disbelief in his eyes as he took in my new build. I told you I wanted to catch up, my best friend said like it was obvious, and pulled me into a massive bear hug. God, it's good to see you again. You too. I chuckled and squeezed tightly. Jesus, Josh, since when did you get so buff? He asked with a wince, and I immediately pulled away. Right. I needed to be careful about things like werewolf strength around. I've been working out a lot. I dismissed with a wave of my hand. It's a grief thing. Well, I'd be lying if I said grief didn't look good on you in that case, he joked before his expression grew a little more serious. How are you? I know. We spoke a little on the phone, but yeah, I'm good. I nodded and leaned back against my desk. CO life is really something. You're telling me that chick out there is super hot and you get to work with her every day, Matt said behind his hand. I'd be jealous, but sadly, she's not my type. Right, you like the I dropped out of college to pursue my dreams as a rock star kind of chick, I drawled teasingly. Grunge is in right now, Matt defended. And rocker chicks know what's up. To each their own, I laughed. How did you convince Ollie to let you in? I showed her a picture of us from high school. My best friend shrugged nonchalantly. She found that pretty hilarious, actually. You asshole. I shoved his shoulder with another laugh and sent him stumbling back. Hey, I needed to get up here somehow, he protested. What's her name, BTW? The girl outside your office. Mia, I said with a fond smile. She's great. Like really, really great. You in love already, Jay? Matt asked with a smirk. I'm not in love, I scoffed. Sure, my best friend said with a raised eyebrow. You look like a little puppy dog right now. Matt started to sing Puppy Love rather loudly, and I pushed myself off the desk so I could cover his mouth with my hand. Shut up. I snorted. She'll hear you. She was gonna hear it regardless because of her wolf hearing, but I needed some way to shut Matt up before he really started embarrassing me. It could hear me a giggle outside the door, and I groaned in response. Let her, my friend shouted loudly as he managed to wiggle out of my grasp. She should know about your little crush. Not a crush, I said in a mock patronizing tone. She's my colleague who has helped me greatly ever since starting here. That's what they all say, Matt sighed dramatically, and his arm swung loose at his side. But I'm happy for you, man. You two would make a good couple. Not dating and not a couple, I reminded him. Not yet, at least, he teased. You've been single for so long, I think it's time you got someone to get you out of the house more. You sound like my mom, I joked, even if it hurt a little to say. Well, your mom knew what she was talking about. Matt shrugged again and dumped himself into one of the leather chairs facing my desk. Can you remember when I tried to set you up with my cousin, and she yelled at me? Yeah, because your cousin was 6 years older than us. I laughed. It was funny. We were 8. I was born to be a salesperson, okay? I knew from a very young age. Matt crossed his arms and pretended to be upset. A salesperson who ended up traveling the globe for a living, I said with a smirk. What made you want to come back? It felt like time, he said as he lifted a shoulder. I haven't been in New York for God, I don't even know how long. You missed it, huh? I asked as I sat down in the other leather chair and rested my chin on my hand. I actually did. He laughed in what sounded like disbelief. Don't get me wrong, I had a lot of fun out there, and I'll definitely go back to traveling some point, but I want something a little more permanent, at least for now. Well, I'm glad you're back, I said honestly. I've missed you, bud. I've missed you too, my best friend said as he met my eyes. And I'm sorry again about missing the funeral. You've got nothing to be sorry for, I reassured him. I mean it, Maddie. You're here now, and that's what matters. I'm always here, he said. It's part of the reason I came back. Not just because I'm a homebuddy at heart, but because I want to be here for you, man. I really appreciate it, Matt. I smiled. God, I don't think I've even spoken to anyone outside of work except for you in years. So it's good to have you back. And there's no getting rid of me now, he snickered. You're stuck with me. Again, just like when I crashed at your place all throughout your last year of college. Ah, those were good times though, I said as my smile turned nostalgic. And if you want to crash at my apartment just like back then, you are more than welcome to. I may have to take you up on that offer, Matt chuckled. I'm moving back in. With my mom. No way, I said in disbelief. You're moving back in with Sally? Yep, he said dryly. And she is as overjoyed as you can imagine. Jesus Christ, Matt, I said and tried to hold back my laughter. Okay, well, as much of a shithole as my place is right now, it's open to you. Thanks, Jay, he said with a wide grin before pushing himself off the seat with a grunt. All right, I'll leave you to do your CEO shit. I'm gonna go get a beer. Without me. I pouted jokingly. I'm hurt. Rain check? The curly-haired human asked with a mischievous glint in his blue eyes. Sure thing. I chuckled and led him to my office door. Call me if you get sick of Sally. Have you got your phone on you right now? He asked. Ha, I deadpanned, but my face showed my amusement. Take it easy in the meantime, and try not to get on her bad side. I pulled open the door for him so he could walk out into the hallway. Mia stood up from her desk as he exited, and I lingered in the doorway. That is quite literally impossible, but for you, Joshua, I shall try, Matt said with a dramatic bow before he turned to my assistant. Mia, lovely to make your acquaintance. You too, Matt, Mia said with an amused smile on her face. See you around, Jay, my friend called out with a wave as he started to head toward the elevator. He clicked the button to take him down to the ground floor, but just before the doors could shut, he flipped me the bird with both hands. Wow! Mia trailed off as she came to lean against my office door. He is a handful. Hilarious, she giggled. And apparently knows something I don't. Mia, don't? I groaned and put my head into my hands. It's just Matt being Matt. So you don't have a puppy dog crush on me? She asked with her tongue between her teeth. God, she looks so hot. Aside from the fact she was wearing my mother's clothes, obviously. I am not entertaining this conversation with you, I said as I dramatically turned into my office. I have lots of work to do. It's your third day here, Mia called back in protest. And I'm very busy, I defended. Let me know when it's time for lunch. Sure thing, puppy dog, the Omega cooed. I sat down at my desk with a roll of my eyes, and when I looked back up to my doorway, she was gone. I picked up the stack of papers I had been halfway through reading and started flicking through the pages for anything I needed to approve or sign. As my pen glided across the paper and signed my name, I couldn't help the contented smile that spread across my face. I could get used to the life of a